Hi, this is Lori, and this is my homework for Paul McWhorter's Pico W course. This homework covers lessons 44 and 45. And these lessons were extending our accelerometer knowledge to measure the drop distance. So we're going to drop it and record the amount of time it takes to drop, use our knowledge of physics to calculate the distance that it was dropped. I thought I'd just show you how I have things laid out here on my board. The big difference I have is I'm using a little different battery here. I have a LiPo battery I purchased, and I wanted to try it instead of the one that came in our kit, but I'm still using the little connector here for the kit and plugging it in. The other thing I have is I have some poster tack. I found that I needed to secure things in place with all the dropping, so little poster tack here and there to keep things from coming loose. Well, let's go through the code I put together. I didn't derive the equation from first principles. I ended up looking it up on the internet from a basic physics book. So that's where I got it from. We'll set up our IMU and the OLED, and here's where the code kind of really gets started. You need a variable to keep track of whether we really experienced a drop or not. And that's because the way that this loop will work is we'll measure the acceleration in the z, and we'll click off a start time. So we'll start the stopwatch, so to speak, and then we'll have a stop time, and in between we'll check to see if we've really had a drop or not. So if it doesn't have a drop, it's going to be running through this while loop pretty rapidly. You can see here it just has a little sleep in it, and then a lot of things that will happen only if a drop has been experienced. So it'll keep updating this start time and stop time over and over and over again until we get a real one, and then that'll matter. And it's tricky to get this measurement, and I tried several things before I came up with this approach, but this approach is the one that finally worked for me. All right, so let's say we really do have a drop, then we'll start the stopwatch, and we'll go into this while loop because we're starting to drop on our z acceleration. And if we drop below about 0.95, I tried different values, 0.9, even higher, and it seemed like 0.95 was the sweet spot. And once we go in there, we'll start measuring the acceleration. So we're going to keep going through this loop until we drop down and then come back up to 1g. And we'll trigger our drop equals true. So we'll change our little variable here and say that we have actually experienced a drop. And then we'll come out, and the stop time will click the stopwatch off, our timer off, and then this if statement will be true, and we'll do all the calculations needed for the distance. So because we're using TIX MS, we'll need to calculate the drop time, and I think it's preferred to use this TIX diff function to calculate that. That'll be in milliseconds, so we'll need to divide by 1,000. And then I went ahead and calculated the distance in inches using the gravity for feet, and then converting that, and then the distance in centimeters and converting that. So I have both on my display, but I've been kind of focusing on using centimeters. I just kind of prefer that. Then we'll print all that stuff to the screen, and I did want to say, some other students are actually viewing this. I've been using a lot of F-strings recently. I did some work on learning about how to do formatting in Python, and F-strings are the preferred way to do that. And so I definitely recommend that if you haven't spent some time learning about them, it's really nice to be able to handle your numerical variables and control how many decimal points you see, how they're formatted. Then you don't have to mess around with round and pasting everything together. You can just do it all in this F string. once you learn the little language that's involved in here to set up your variables and print them the way you want them to print, you really have a lot of control. So I definitely recommend, if you haven't spent some time with that, as we've been moving along in the class, maybe now's the time. And I'll make a link to a video I put together on how to do F-string formatting, because it's really worthwhile. So I do both those for the inches and the centimeters and send that to the screen. Then this is really important. I found if I didn't immediately sleep, I could register more than one bounce, because I think sometimes over here it'll bounce back up and move around a little bit, and it might register another drop, and then you don't end up getting the first drop. You get the last thing it registered as a drop. So I found that it was good to just go ahead and sleep. And if I do 5 seconds, and in a couple cases I've actually increased this to 10 when I later on do some big drops. Gives you a chance to actually see the result before that ready to drop gets put on the screen again. All right, time to try this out. I haven't necessarily found this to be super accurate. I think it really depends on just how well it lands, whether it lands smoothly, doesn't rock around a lot, whether you actually align it correctly, because it's a little hard to, with it in the air, to exactly be sure you're at 5 centimeters or 10. But it seems directionally correct. So let's do that. We'll do a 5 centimeter drop, we'll do a 10, and how about a 20, and hope that we at least see it go in the right direction. All right, so I'm going to go ahead and plug it in and get it going. Press it down so it stays all together. All right, and it says it's ready to drop, so I'm going to go ahead and put it up, and we'll try to do about a 5. So that's right around there. And I see 4.2 centimeters. So that's not too bad. Okay, it's ready to drop again. Let's try 10. Oh, and as I picked it up, I jiggled it a little too much. So I'll have to wait for it to say ready to drop. It's ready now. That's right about 10. And I got a 11.0. All right, let's try a 20. And that's right about 20. And wow, I got 20.8. So that came out pretty good. So not too bad, I guess. I got inspired to try some larger drops. So this video will end with 2 more drops. One from a yard, which is about 91 centimeters. And then we're going to drop it from, I have a loft in my house, and we're going to drop it from the loft. So it's going to be a pretty good long distance. And my husband's going to help. He's going to do the dropping, and we're going to see what happens when we do a pretty long drop. Well, let's get going. Okay, the cat has entered the drop zone. We'll have to encourage him to move out of the experiment. Okay, whenever you're ready.
3, 2, 1.